Hi guys, welcome back. This is video 3 for chapter 1. The last thing we did in video 2 was discuss what a theory is, and now we're moving on to the hazards of economic thinking. There are 3 reasons why a theory fails. They are ignoring the Ceteris Paribus condition. Ceteris Paribus is what a lot of people say it, but I also like you to know that it is actually pronounced Ceteris Paribus in Latin, but let's just say Ceteris Paribus. So when people ignore that, that's one reason. 2 is confusing association with causation. And 3 is falling for the fallacy of composition, right? Because that is like a trap. So the first one is ignoring the Ceteris Paribus. Okay, what does that mean? In English, it means all other things held constant. If you remember, a theory has an x and a y, and you graph them that way, right? The x goes on the x-axis and the y on the y-axis. However, when you have variables v and u and z, if you think about it, when we were discussing an example for a theory, we said interest rates impact borrowing inversely, and then we said so long wealth and income remain the same. Those are your Ceteris Paribus conditions. So when we impose those conditions, in other words, if you want something to work, you always have to create a parameter. You have to create boundaries, right? Those are the boundaries. So as long as you stay on that path of how x equals y, it pans out 100% correct. So if your theory isn't working 100% of the time, it could be that you have other variables other than x and y that you did not freeze and you were supposed to freeze them. 2 is confusing association with causation. Causation is your x, right? So x impacts y directly inversely. Well, if you identify the x incorrectly, you have a problem. So what happens sometimes is, think for instance when a detective is solving a crime. A detective has many suspects, so there could be, for instance, 7 suspects, but only 1 murderer. Well, you need to know which ones are the 6 that are just associated and which one is the actual causation. A really silly example might be, for instance, every time the ice cream man shows up, somebody drowns, therefore it's gotta be the ice cream man. 3 drownings, 3 times the ice cream man was there, no, that's just an association, right? That is not a causation. So imagine if you're baking and you think that what's making your dough rise is salt, and you end up putting a lot of salt in your dough, that's not going to give you a rise. What really does is the yeast. So you have to be careful that do you even have the right x in the first place? And the last error is ignoring the fallacy of composition. The fallacy of composition is basically saying your sample size could be an issue. Just because something is good for part of the group, it doesn't mean it's necessarily good for the entire group. If someone stands out of their seat at a baseball game, they can see better, right? But if everybody stands up, now most people cannot see very well. So if a few people do it, it works. If everybody does it, actually it defeats the purpose. Another way of looking at it is like saying, hey, look, our human cells are invisible, right, to the naked eye. We can't see human cells. Well, if human cells are invisible to the naked eye, then humans must be invisible. That's not true at all. Our cells might be, but we are not. So you have to be careful about that when you are looking at a theory. Now, the last point in this chapter is going over positive versus normative economics. Look, economists disagree all the time, and yet economists are looking at facts and figures and statistics. How does this happen? Well, because there are facts and there are interpretations of facts. Facts are everything that is positive, and what that means is that it's verifiable. Please pay attention. It does not mean that it is true. It just means it's verifiable. I can say to you right now, imagine, I'm picturing you anyway, that you're somewhere in a room by yourself, and I am saying to you, well, it's you and 100 people in your room, right? That's still positive. Why? Because we can verify how many people are actually in the room. So this is not about whether a statement is correct or not, truthful or not. This is whether it is verifiable or not. Now, sometimes something can be true, or at least we feel or think it's true, but it is not actually verifiable. Like something so simple, like, for instance, wisdom comes with age. Maybe, maybe not, right? Some of it is true. I hope we get wiser, but there are people who are not any wiser in their 50s than they were in their 30s. It happens. So because such things are so difficult to prove, we relegate them to the world of opinion. Think of the Big Lebowski. That's your opinion, man, right? That is normative economics. Normative is when everybody is looking at the same facts and figures, but how they combine and how they interpret the end result of that or the prediction from that is different. This is why we go and consult with more than one doctor. Sometimes you say, I want a second opinion. Notice it's called an opinion. Isn't it science? Well, the tests, the reports, that's all science. But the interpretation of it has a human factor. It has our experiences, what we specifically read recently, who we specifically discussed something with recently, some study we read about, somebody else didn't read about, our own values, many different things. Like for instance, I have a doctor who very much believes in lifestyle changes. She's not going to prescribe you something quickly. She's going to first say, what are you eating? Are you exercising? Are you sleeping? Etc. That's a philosophy. She went to medical school like everybody else. But how she interprets what's going on with you and how you can fix it is a little bit different than someone else. I think we now can understand that if it's something like science, math, facts, it's positive, it's verifiable. If it is in any way, shape, or form a matter of opinion and interpretation, you relegate it to normative. Okay, guys, you have a great one, and I will be seeing you soon.